This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual. Ladies and gentlemen, the host of WEBIT Virtual, Dr. Plamen Rusev.
Welcome, wonderful WEBIT community from all around the world. It's such a great pleasure to see you today. And as you can see, I'm out of my virtual world. Well, it's always good to go back to Rio, and we can't wait to finally meet, obviously, latest by 14th, 18th of December at the WEBIT Global Week, hybrid, and with many of you hopefully in person. But until then, we still go for WEBIT Virtual and meeting you with fascinating people, with game changers, people who help all build the desirable future. And today is no different. So without further ado, let me introduce my guest today.
Cait is a transformational product leader known for bringing new customer products and experience to life at scale. Having joined the FT in 2016, Cait has reinvented how the FT delivers engaging experiences to their subscribers and how the FT organization thinks about content. Cait has been responsible for leading the entire product and technology strategy that has fundamentally changed the way the FT attributes revenue to product. Cait has introduced transformative product-focused frameworks that have created both investment outcome and the empowerment of individuals and teams that has led to creating a high-performing culture across the entire organization. As an active member of the FT Board of Directors and FT TNW Board, Cait leads the agenda on global commercial strategy, performance, governance, and outcomes. Cait is a diversity advocate and culture visionary who defines the mission and sets the pace for operations, future development, and core innovation.
It's such a pleasure to have you with us, Cait. Thank you so much for joining us at WEBIT Virtual.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so pleased to be with you. Wish I was there in person, but this is the next best thing.
Well, I take it as a promise, and I look very much forward to meet you in person at our event in December. But until then, every business is dependent on technology these days to deliver growth, to deliver success. All leaders now need to be a piece of IT leaders, to have a piece of IT leadership to understand product strategy and focus their efforts and how to make the next leap ahead. So you're working now at a board level to create an environment that works well at all stages of product development. How do you get started? Let's get our WEBIT community a little bit better acquainted with your path until today. So what was your starting point until you reached to be heading the development of Financial Times?
Yeah, so I've been doing product management, product development for coming up on 15 years now. I started my product management journey while I was at the BBC in the UK. Way back in the day, I was a journalist, and in about 2006, I made the transition into product development. And really the reason for that was it felt to me like a lot of the creativity at bbc.co.uk was in how the content got to the customer, not necessarily in the content itself. At the time, the BBC was doing a lot of repurposing of content that had been on the TV and putting it on the internet. That's changed a lot, obviously, in the intervening 14 or 15 years. But it felt to me that a lot of the creativity was in how you got the customer to the right content at the right time. So I made a switch into product development, and I spent the next 5 or 6 years doing that at the BBC, initially in news, and then I moved into sport. I was head of product for sport at the BBC, and me and my team delivered all the digital products that the BBC delivered for the Olympics in 2012, which were in London. So my team built all the mobile apps, the responsive website. We built a whole new content system. We built everything from scratch.
It was
in time
huge at that moment. It was like, it was something that was unseen by that moment. So it was really an amazing thing to follow that. So congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, it was such an amazing experience to work on, and I learned so much in the little over 2 years that I was doing that, going from a team of about 10 to, at the end, we had about 450 people working on the Olympics at the BBC. So that was enormously good fun. When that was finished, I left the BBC and I moved to Shazam, which is a very different experience. It's a startup that made a music app. And my job was to set up the product team in London. That was really good fun as well, and was an experience of moving outside of public service, which is what the BBC is in the UK, into a highly commercial, fast-paced environment. We built an amazing team. We did some fantastic things together. And a couple of years later, I was approached about the job at the FT, which is what I do now. I'm Chief Product and Information Officer. It's a slightly weird title, but it's basically designed to reflect the fact that I look after all of product and tech for the FT. So everything from end user computing and cybersecurity and networking that you might see in a traditional IT role, all the way through to product development, which, as I said, is my background. And my job is to make sure that my team has a clear strategy to drive the digital growth of the FT, and that we are executing on that flawlessly so that we can deliver that growth. I have around about 450 people who work for me globally. So there are a couple of hundred people in the UK, and then we have a big team of about 150 in Sofia in Bulgaria, which we started doing around about 3 years ago, and has been an unbelievable success for us at the FT. And then I have a small team in Manila in the Philippines. My biggest regret of all the things at the moment is that I can't come to Sofia and see the team and eat the amazing food and enjoy the amazing environs of Sofia, and that will be absolutely the first place I go. And I have marked those dates in my mental calendar for December in the hopes I can make it then.
No, go ahead. I'm not going to interrupt you. I like what you're saying. Because all our global community knows that majority of our team is from Bulgaria, and that's where WEBIT started initially. So yeah, I like hearing those great success stories. And I like hearing that specific story because definitely the growth of different regions around the world is one of our key missions, and we'll work very, very, very much and hard to achieve. And Central Eastern Europe was part of this mission initially. Now we spread our wings almost entirely around the planet, but still it's a homeland, and I like to see success stories coming out there, and yours is one of them, which is fantastic. Thank you for mentioning. But obviously, COVID has made a lot of things a bit different, especially in the media world, where the consumption of content turned mostly digital. It wasn't like it wasn't happening before, but COVID made the huge difference. I mean, look at us now. We did started working on WEBIT to make it virtual some time ago, because for efficiency of contacts and adding that virtual layer, for adding, of course, opportunity for people who cannot travel to be there and to connect. But still, it was like, well, let's have it. Good to have. Now look at this. It can't go without it. So what were the challenges that you faced? What difficulties did you face during this period in terms of product development with FT?
So last year was challenging on lots of fronts for all companies. There were really two main areas of difficulty, one of which was we were seeing serious disruption in some of our core businesses. So we were seeing decline in businesses that we would expect to happen over the 5-year period happening in a matter of months. So while subscriptions, which is our main business at the FT, were going fantastically and lots of people coming to the FT to understand the financial implications of the pandemic, we were seeing disruption in print advertising, in print circulation, so the selling of newspapers, and also in our, as you could imagine, we have a big live events business, and as you know, that was heavily disrupted as well. We are starting to see those businesses come back now, but it was a real opportunity for us to think about where that digital growth was going to come from, and I'll come to that in a second. The second big problem, unsurprisingly, is a people problem. We managed to work from home incredibly successfully almost immediately because we had prepared for disruption to our offices. As you can imagine, we have offices in central Sofia, but we also have offices in central London. We were prepared for disruption, whether that was a terrorist attack or anything else that might happen in a big capital city like London, but we never expected to do it over such a long duration. So technically, because we had moved to the cloud and everyone had laptops, it was easy physically to work from home. I think there is a huge challenge in terms of how you make that work and how you keep people motivated, and particularly around new starters. I mean, at the FT, we've had more than 100 people join us since the pandemic who've never met their colleagues. And that's a really, really challenging situation. And how do you make sure that you keep the valuable culture that you have, that you onboard people successfully, that you don't have burnout, and also remembering that we're not just working from home, we're working from home in a pandemic. So, that causes ever more stress when people are worried about themselves or their loved ones or their friends or their family and their health situation. There was a huge amount of understandable anxiety across all our teams in all of the locations. So, but everybody knows that it's been an incredibly challenging 16 months or so. I think it was also an opportunity, and it would, and I think one of the things that you're keen to talk about is how we do new product development and how you develop new products and services at somewhere like the FT that already has a very successful existing business.
And how did you overcome those? And I'm sure you have some secret strategies for turning the mistakes into wins, having a good information of your track record of success.
So, none of this is particularly secret, actually. I mean, we're very honest and open at the FT about both our successes and our failures, because both of which are really important to be honest about, because you have to learn from your mistakes. And so it started with a really strong look at our strategy and thinking about where the growth is going to come from. We are a business publication, and people use the FT for lots of different reasons, but a lot of people who read the FT read it to make themselves more successful at their job. And thinking about that and where we think the opportunity is for growth. And so we spent a considerable amount of time in the latter half of last year thinking about where the growth was going to come from, and and splitting that into pillars or areas of focus around how can we gain more readers for our existing products on ft.com, and think about pricing, particularly there to drive growth and drive a bigger audience. We have a very big and successful B2B business within the FT, and thinking about what we can develop for our audiences, which are effectively companies who really are using the FT to make themselves better at their job. Then we thought about community. So, much like you are doing here at WEBIT, all conferences have moved online, as has the FT, but also thinking about our extraordinarily valuable audience at the FT. And is there value in connecting those audiences together, both in event terms, but also digitally? Is there a value in being able to allow our audience to talk to each other? And finally, we're looking also at much higher price products that are aimed at very, very niche markets with specific interests, whether that's in ESG and ethical investments, or in particular verticals like cryptocurrencies, etc. So we developed a very, very strong strategy, and what we've been doing is making sure that we have the right people in place to be able to test out new products in a really agile and efficient way to see if we can validate whether that strategy has the value that we hope that it will do for the future growth of the FT.
It sounds so easy, isn't it?
Not easy at all.
I was not surprised. Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't easy at all, and it's not easy at all to adapt to the fast-changing environment, and that's what we see, right? Successful companies adapting. The faster you do it, the more you add value to your employees, to your community, to the humankind. So. Yeah, hopefully we will see some amazing things coming out of FT, and I'm sure that you will be at the forefront of that. I will not surprise you now if I tell you that we have a very short commercial break, and we are coming back in a minute. So when we are back, we shall be discussing with Cait how global media is changing and how technology is changing journalism. And furthermore, we will hear her vision and prediction of, no pressure, of the upcoming decades and where she believes media is moving in general. So stay with us.
The Virtual Show, the only one-stop shop event virtualization platform bringing together hundreds of thousands of people by virtualizing human interactions. Fully customizable lobbies, conference halls, exhibitions, networking lounges with one-to-one, one-to-many meetings, group workshops, resources, help desks, and so much more, such as unparalleled content production like no other in the world. The Virtual Show. Transform your virtual experience today.
This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual.
We're back, and we're discussing all about how technology is going to change the future of media and journalism. And we have the very right person with us, with a phenomenal track record of successful projects implemented in the media world, starting with BBC and then further Shazam, and currently with FT leading the product and intelligence, meaning almost everything when it comes to building successful media business. Thanks so much, Cait, for being with us in our global WEBIT community. And as I've already promised before the break, I would like to ask you and hear your take on how FT is changing, obviously, in terms of adopting technology, and how audience is changing, consuming the content that global media are providing, and obviously how this is changing journalism as per your vision due to the digital transformation, implementation, particularly of for example, AI in particular. So yeah, what a short question.
So I think from a business perspective, what media companies are seeing globally is the huge importance of a direct one-to-one relationship with your customer. Back in the day, I think there were lots of media organizations, and the FT was not one of them, to be clear, who thought that their future was in ad-funded products. That has proven for most people very difficult to sustain. And nearly all media organizations are now thinking about how they develop a one-to-one relationship with their customer, and particularly how they turn to a subscription model. The FT has successfully been selling subscriptions to its customers for a very long time, a lot longer than most, and is one of sort of a handful of organizations and media organizations in the world who have done that successfully. I think that is a big challenge for media organizations to do, because we all have so many subscriptions, and I think we have even more subscriptions since lockdown happened, in terms of entertainment subscriptions, game subscriptions, and also media subscriptions, which means there's a massive competition for attention, but there's also competition for that money that people are willing to spend on subscriptions. So how do you persuade people that they shouldn't just have an FT subscription, but they should have, for example, a New York Times subscription or a Washington Post subscription as well? That's a big challenge. But subscription businesses are very nice businesses, because they grow nicely once you get it right. If you have the right content that people value, they will continue to pay for it. But that, from a business side, is a challenge that most media organizations are facing. And then, of course, there is how you service the needs of a big and diverse audience. Machine learning, artificial intelligence has a big part to play, and will have a growing part to play in that in the coming years. Particularly thinking about how, in two areas, one of which is how you get the right person to the right content at the right time, based on what you understand about what their interests are, without sticking them into a filter bubble. The FT audience is incredibly intelligent, and is worried about how disappearing into a filter bubble and missing something that's going to be important to them in the future. So how do you combine that really important and valuable FT view of what's important, plus also making sure that the customer is getting to the right content and that you're showing them some stuff that they might have missed otherwise, and the combination of that human curation plus machine learning driven curation that gets people to the right content. And that's areas that we are experimenting on. There's also a big role for machine learning to play in customer acquisition. How do you make sure that you get the right offer to the right person at the right time based on what you understand about how engaged they are with your product and their propensity to convert? There is a third area, which of course is really, really interesting from a media perspective, which is the creation of the content itself. My personal view on that one is that there is nothing that can replace the insight and the analysis of an actual journalist. You see lots of experimentation in terms of how you create automated coverage of things that maybe you don't want your journalists to spend their time on. So whether that is market earnings reports, for example, those are the sorts of things that you can automate relatively easily. And the Euros is on at the moment, and you can see, the automatic creation of football reports is relatively straightforward, and there's an awful lot of that around at the moment. So where you have highly structured content, A, pass the ball to B scores, that kind of thing, you can create artificial content relatively straightforwardly. But I think, certainly within the FT audience, as I say, there is anxiety about the automated creation of content, because they want to make sure that content is true. And the importance of a free press and the quality control that you get with a quality publisher like the FT has never been more important in a world of disinformation. So people want to know what the FT is creating is both fact checked and true, but also that we are offering them the right mix of content so that they can be as successful as they possibly can. And how do you augment that world with machine learning, artificial intelligence, in such a way that you guide people around, but hold on to that really core value of the trust that people have in a brand like the FT?
I'm not sure if because I like very much how you started that subscription grows into a wonderful business. Obviously, it's the same with SaaS. So most probably, information as a service is an interesting take on building that model and really growing it. The bigger the better. So in terms of FT, I know that you're among the pioneers in building that model. So obviously you've made the right choice in growing it. But it's interesting to hear where you believe that media is heading. So if subscription is the only way, and it's never only, but if it's the way for global media to grow, it will be very hard for all the audience and attendees actually users and readers. I always say attendees because of WEBIT, but obviously wrong in terms of media. But readers to pick the number of subscriptions. And I'm interested to see how this business model will grow, especially having solutions that are bringing more and more of your own desired content. The same way that now we see Netflix getting content and stuff. So I think media is just about to be disrupted in the next couple of years to come. And I'll be very, very happy to be close to where you are heading and to hear your thoughts and your ideas. Of course, most probably after you implement them with FT. You're not going to share them in advance, but still talking about the future, where do you see it heading? How do you see the whole media industry in the next, for example, decade? Do you see that far, or even you see beyond that?
Obviously, we think about it a lot, and I think the two, from a technology perspective, the two big changes that are coming is machine learning, which we've already discussed, Also, 5G is going to make a massive difference to how people consume content, and removing that limit to what a small device can receive and consume. There's also big changes in terms of how people consume. So as we move more into automation and particularly in the automotive industry, where if cars become self-driving, for example, that creates space in which people can listen to more content, because the real issue is actually people's time to be able to engage with all of this content. Our competition isn't, we have huge respect for the New York Times and the Washington Post and the other big publications in the world, but we're competing with time that people might want to spend with Netflix or with Amazon or with spending time playing video games online. There's just a huge competition for attention. So one of the big opportunities when it comes to travel is, whether that's in a car or any other kind of any other type of vehicle, but that creates a space in which people can engage with your content. And thinking about how they might want to engage with you, is the written text the right thing in that circumstance? But what is the seamless blend between audio, for example, and text and images? Video obviously is also another area where people is incredibly engaging. So I think we're going to see disruption on lots and lots of levels. It's interesting that you mentioned things like Netflix for news. That's incredibly challenging for a news business to make money out of, because quite often it's very expensive to make high quality news, and if you're getting a fraction of that content because people can get that alongside other publishers, then often the mechanics and the business model doesn't make sense for a publication like the Financial Times, which also is highly differentiated. We have to remember that the FT is a business publication, and so there is a clear reason why people might invest in that and something else. So I think there is huge disruption coming, and being able to be fleet of foot and to meet that demand whilst also growing your existing business is going to be too much of a challenge. And it is absolutely the job of organizations like the Financial Times to keep moving and keep being successful, because what we do in terms of holding powerful elites, whether they are businesses or governments, to account, has never been more important.
I can't agree more with you, Cait. And I am a believer that the free press will find its way to continue its most important role, but giving the truth space in our lives. Because as you rightfully mentioned, the era of disinformation has created so many alternative realities and so many parallel universes that some people really don't feel like they live next to each other. So we are all hopeful that FT and media like FT, media houses like FT, will find its way to build up in that. And I'm sure that people like you, as I've already mentioned, will be at the forefront. That's why we are so grateful and honored to have you with us in this special interview as part of WEBIT Virtual. And definitely looking forward to see you latest in December at the Global WEBIT Impact Week. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for joining us for this half an hour of meeting with the brightest, bravest, and the people who are changing the world. WEBIT community, it was my pleasure and honor to have Cait O'Reilly, Chief Product and Information Officer at Financial Times today. And I talk to you again next Tuesday, same time at WEBIT Virtual. Thank you.
This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual.